Most people think getting lost in the woods is the scariest part of camping. But sometimes what waits for you in those trees is worse than starvation, worse than the dark, worse than any animal. What happened in the Sierra Nevada mountains to a group of teens in California is not a ghost story. It's something real, something human, something you'll wish you never heard. Don't forget to subscribe and share, because this story will haunt you long after it ends. Blood dotted the pine needles. At first, Marcus thought it was just the aftermath of an animal kill, some unlucky rabbit dragged through the brush by a coyote. But when he knelt to get a closer look, he realized the drops were too big, too heavy, human. "Guys," he called, his voice cracking. You need to see this." The rest of us gathered around him, our laughter from a few minutes earlier dying instantly. The forest around us was still suffocating. No birds, no wind, just silence. Jess's hand slipped into mine. Her grip was ice cold. Ryan tried to laugh it off. Could be a hunter. Someone cut themselves dressing a deer. But Emily shook her head. She was pale, her lips pressed tight. "That's fresh," she whispered. "Like minutes fresh." And then we saw the second trail, drag marks weaving between the trees, as if something heavy had been pulled off the main path. The six of us stood frozen. We'd only come up here for a weekend camping trip. We weren't supposed to find this. Still, curiosity, or maybe stupidity, pulled us forward. We followed the streaks through the trees until they ended in a small clearing. That's where we saw it. A ripped sneaker. The fabric soaked through with blood. Emily gasped. That's Jason's shoe." Jason, the seventh member of our group, the one who'd gone ahead earlier to scout the trail. But now, all that remained of him was his shoe, torn and bloody, lying abandoned in the dirt. No one spoke for a long time. The clearing felt colder than the rest of the forest, like the trees themselves were holding their breath. Ryan finally broke the silence. "We need to keep moving. Maybe Jason's ahead. Maybe he's hurt." But the look in his eyes told me he didn't believe his own words. None of us did. Marcus knelt by the sneaker, reaching out like he might pick it up, but then he froze. "There's more," he whispered. Behind the shoe, the drag marks continued, faint but clear, leading further into the trees. And with them, more droplets. Emily backed away, shaking her head. "We should turn back. We shouldn't be here." Jess squeezed my hand tighter. "What if he's alive?" Her voice cracked on the last word, and I hated how hopeful it sounded, because every instinct in me was screaming the opposite. We followed anyway. The trail curved downhill through thicker brush until the air turned damp and the soil softened beneath our boots. A smell began to rise, coppery, metallic, and faintly rotten. It clung to the back of my throat, making me gag. And then, from somewhere deep in the forest, we heard it. A sound that didn't belong. A metallic clang, like iron striking iron, followed by something else. A low hum. A voice. Marcus froze. "Did you hear that?" We all had. The voice was faint, drifting through the trees. Someone singing. No words, just a slow, tuneless hum that rolled like smoke through the forest. Jess buried her face into my arm. Ryan whispered, "That's not Jason." We should have run. We should have turned around right then and there. But instead, we kept walking, drawn to the sound. The blood trail ended at the edge of another clearing, and in the center of it stood a man. He was tall, thin, dressed in ragged layers of dirty clothes. His beard hung in greasy strands down his chest, and in one hand he held a lantern, its weak flame flickering against the twilight. He stopped humming when he saw us, and he smiled. "Evening," he said softly, like he'd been waiting. The man's lantern flickered, throwing long, dancing shadows across his face. His eyes seemed to glint unnaturally in the weak light, but his smile stayed fixed, too wide, too calm. "You kids lost?" he asked. His voice was low, almost kind. Nobody answered right away. We all just stared. He looked like he belonged to the woods, like he'd grown out of the soil and bark itself. His clothes were caked with dirt and something darker. His fingernails were long, cracked, and rimmed with black. Finally, Ryan cleared his throat. "Our friend's missing. We found blood." Have you seen anyone out here?" The man tilted his head, as if considering the question. Then slowly he nodded. "Boy in a red jacket, wasn't he?" My stomach dropped. Jason had been wearing a red windbreaker. The man's smile spread. He went running down the ridge. Looked scared half to death. Probably lost his footing. Easy to get turned around out here. "Is he okay?" Emily blurted out, her voice shaking. The man's eyes flicked to her, then back to the group. "Didn't see him long. But I've got food, water, a place to rest. You can stay the night in my cabin. Then I'll help you find him in the morning." The offer hung in the air like bait on a hook. Jess whispered to me, "We should go. Please." But Marcus was already stepping forward, desperate. "We've been out here for hours. Phones are dead. We can't just wander." The man turned, gesturing with his lantern. "Not far. Safer with me than out here alone." Something about the way he said it made every hair on my body stand on end. Safer with him. Still, one by one we followed. The trail wound deeper into the trees, darker and darker, until only his lantern lit the way. The air grew heavier, thick with that coppery, rotting smell. When the cabin finally appeared between the trees, it looked almost normal. Small, made of rough logs, smoke curling faintly from a crooked chimney. But the windows were dark, like eyes that had been stitched shut. The man pushed the door open and stepped inside, the lantern's glow spilling across the floor. "Welcome home," he said softly. The cabin smelled wrong. At first it was subtle, masked by the smoke of the fireplace and the dusty wood. But beneath it was something sour, metallic, clinging. The smell of rot. We tried not to notice. We were too tired, too shaken. The man set out food, bread, jars of something dark, and strips of dried meat. Marcus dug in immediately, chewing without hesitation. Emily followed, too hungry to care. I couldn't eat. Jess didn't either. The way the man watched us, leaning in the doorway, arms folded, that faint smile never leaving his face, made every bite feel like a trap. Ryan broke the silence. "You live out here alone?" The man nodded. "Always have. Woods provide everything I need. Most folks don't last a day out here. But me? I was born for this." His lantern flickered on the table between us, casting his features in sharp lines. For just a second, I thought I saw something on his cheek, a dark smear that looked like dried blood. When I blinked, it was gone. After we ate, he showed us to a back room with 6 cots. The bed sagged, the blankets smelled damp, but none of us cared. We collapsed into them. I woke sometime in the night to the sound of footsteps. Slow dragging, moving through the cabin. I held my breath, straining my ears. The footsteps paused outside our door. Then a faint creak, the door easing open, just a crack. A shadow lingered in the gap, watching. I shut my eyes, heart pounding, forcing myself to breathe evenly. Minutes passed. Finally, the door closed again. When I woke with the others at dawn, Jess was shaking me. Her face was pale. "Where's Emily?" she whispered. Her cot was empty. At first, Marcus tried to laugh it off. She probably went outside, bathroom or something. But her backpack was still by the wall. Her jacket, her phone, everything. We searched the cabin. Nothing. When we stepped outside, the man was chopping wood in the yard. He looked up at us, calm as ever. "Your friend left before sunrise," he said. "Said she was heading back on her own." "That's impossible," Ryan snapped. "She'd never." The man cut him off with that same wide smile. "Some folks panic. Some folks don't wait around. Best let her go." The axe came down hard into the wood. The sound echoed through the clearing like a gunshot. And none of us believed him. The rest of that day was a blur. None of us spoke much. We sat outside the cabin, pretending to relax while the man went about his chores, chopping wood, tending to a garden that looked sickly and overgrown. But inside, tension hung thick as smoke. By nightfall, we were back in the cots. The firelight from the other room flickered under the door, and every creak of the cabin made my heart slam harder. Jess clung to my arm, whispering that something was wrong. I didn't need convincing. Then Ryan made a decision that would change everything. He leaned close, barely breathing the words. When he falls asleep, we search this place. Marcus swallowed hard but nodded. Hours passed. The man's humming finally quieted. The floorboards stopped creaking. Silence. We crept out. The lantern on the table still glowed faintly, the last of its oil burning down. The main room looked the same as before, simple, poor. But when Ryan pressed on a door we hadn't noticed earlier, hidden half behind a cabinet, it opened with a soft groan. The smell hit us instantly. It wasn't just rot. It was worse, sweet and sick, like meat left in the sun. Jess gagged, covering her mouth. Marcus shone his phone's flashlight into the room. And we froze. Hooks dangled from the ceiling, heavy chains rattling against the beams. Beneath them, wooden tables scarred with knife marks. Dark stains soaked the wood, the floor, the walls. Bones. So many bones. Some clean, some gnawed. The skulls stacked in crates like they were nothing more than old bottles. In the far corner sat a chest freezer. Ryan hesitated, then yanked it open. The light revealed slabs of meat, carefully wrapped in butcher's paper. At first glance, you might think it was venison, until you noticed the shape of the cuts. A hand. Pale fingers pressed against the frost. Jess screamed, muffling it instantly with her palm. We stumbled back, terror clawing up our throats. And that's when Marcus noticed the wall, lined with faded flyers and posters. Missing people. Hikers, campers, kids. Some faces so old the ink had bled away. Dozens of them. And in the center, taped with care, was a photo of Jason. His red jacket was bright against the grainy print. Jess whispered, trembling, "We have to get out of here." But before we could move, the sound of the floorboards above us groaned. Someone else was awake. The footsteps overhead were slow and deliberate. Not the shuffle of one old man, but heavier, multiplied. More than one set. Ryan mouthed, "He's not alone." The four of us scrambled back toward the cots, trying to erase any sign we'd been in that hidden room. But it was too late. The door creaked open. The man stood there, lantern in hand. Only now he wasn't smiling. His face was blank, his eyes hard and black in the glow. Behind him, two figures loomed, shadows at first, then clearer as they stepped closer. A woman, her hair a greasy tangle, her teeth jagged and yellow. And beside her, a hulking man with a face twisted by scars, dragging a rusted axe across the floorboards. Jess whimpered against me. The old man's voice was calm, steady. "You shouldn't have gone down there." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then, with horrifying casualness, he set the lantern on the floor and whispered, "Time to feed." The woman shrieked, a raw, animal sound that froze my blood, and the big man lunged. Marcus tried to run. He didn't make it 3 steps before the axe came down. The sound of it, the wet crack, was something I'll never forget. Jess and I were shoved aside as the room exploded into chaos. Ryan grabbed a chair and smashed it against the woman, splinters flying. But she didn't even fall. She clawed at his face, screaming, "Run!" Ryan shouted. Jess pulled me toward the door. My legs barely worked, but instinct took over. We burst into the night, the cold air hitting my lungs like knives. Behind us, Ryan's screams tore through the trees, sharp, then cut off with a sickening snap. We ran blind, branches whipping at our faces, until we collapsed behind a fallen log. Jess sobbed into my shoulder. They killed them. Oh God, Marcus, Ryan. I wanted to comfort her. I wanted to lie and say we'd be okay. But through the darkness, I saw lanterns. Dozens of them, moving. One by one, they flickered to life in the trees, circling us, closing in. It wasn't just a family. It was a whole community. And they were hunting. The forest glowed with lanterns. Figures stepped from the trees, men, women, even children, their faces sunken and pale, eyes wide with hunger. Some carried knives, others rusted farming tools, axes, hooks. Their breaths came heavy, clouds of steam in the cold night air. Jess gripped my arm, so tightly it hurt. "We're not getting out of here." "Yes, we are," I hissed, though my voice shook. The circle tightened. Dozens of them. Their leader, the old man, appeared at the front, lantern raised high. His voice carried through the silence. "Don't run. It'll hurt less. Jess didn't wait. She bolted. I had no choice but to follow. We crashed through the trees, the sound of pursuit exploding behind us. Branches snapping, feet pounding, voices shrieking like wild animals. A rock clipped my shin and I stumbled, but Jess yanked me up, her strength fueled by sheer terror. A figure lunged at us from the side. I swung blindly with a branch, connecting with a skull. The man crumpled with a grunt, lanterns spilling into the leaves. The fire flared and spread, lighting the night in orange. We ran harder. Then Jess screamed. A hand shot from the dark, yanking her down. I turned just in time to see one of the women dragging her by the hair, knife flashing in the light. I didn't think, I just charged. My shoulder slammed into the woman, sending her sprawling. Jess scrambled free, but the knife caught her leg, leaving a deep red gash. We have to fight. Jess cried. Ahead, the hulking man from the cabin emerged, axe raised high. He swung at me, missing by inches as I dove aside. The blade buried into a tree trunk. Before he could wrench it free, Jess grabbed a rock and smashed it into his temple. Once, twice, until he collapsed, twitching in the dirt. We didn't stop. We couldn't. Somehow, through the madness, we burst onto a dirt road. My chest burned, my lungs screamed. Jess collapsed beside me, her leg bleeding badly. Headlights. For one impossible second, I thought it was over. A car barreling toward us. Safety. But then I saw him. The old man. Standing in the middle of the road, lantern raised, smiling that awful smile. The car swerved, missing him, and screeched to a stop by us instead. A trucker. Wide-eyed shouting, "Get in." We hauled Jess inside. The old man didn't move. He just watched as we sped away, lantern glowing like a star swallowed by the trees. The police found the cabin, the bones, the missing person posters, the butchered remains. They confirmed it all, but they never found the community. Only Jess and I survived. We told our story. Nobody believed us, at least not all of it. They said maybe it was just one madman, just the old man. But Jess and I know the truth. There were dozens of them, maybe more, and they're still out there, waiting in the woods for the next group to wander too far.